one of the things that I really love about what Ellie's done with this piece is to really make it her own. When I created this piece, I created it, when I first started playing the harp, I was looking around for repertoire like this, because I assumed there must be some, because there was repertoire like this for other instruments. Repertoire that could show the whole spectrum of, you know, from genteel to absolute passion, and that really explored the instrument and took a lot of the techniques like the strumming into a highly musical and dramatic context. Like I really loved playing Song in the Night when I was a kid, but I felt, or when I was a young adult, which is when I started the harp, but I didn't feel that it gave me the level of emotionalism that I wanted. I felt like it kind of showed the harp, which was great, but it didn't musically let me express the passion and the emotionality and the musicality that I wanted to express. So I envisioned a piece like this, and I envisioned playing it with a symphony orchestra, which I didn't know how to write for symphony orchestra. So when I first wrote the piece, I also thought that I would be able to improvise the whole cadenza. Like every time I did it, I could improvise a new cadenza. And then I began to realize that in order to get the emotional impact that I wanted, I was going to have to literally write it out so that I knew what was happening, so that I could build that emotional arc, which is what the cadenza is about. And one of the things I love about the piece is that, you know, it plays with people's expectations. And that's one of the things I love. One of the other things I love is that it plays with people's expectations because it goes back and forth between the classical and the, you know, more rhythmic, percussive type of expression. The other thing that I love about it is that each person can make it their own. And there are certain places where that is particularly open, like right before the introduction that's written, and I'm sure Ellie is going to talk to you about this, is a space where you can really sit at the instrument and make that space your own. For me, it's often playing arpeggios before I begin so that I just really can center myself, and then I start the piece. So those are places where you can really bring yourself in, and all the technique that you particularly have. Another place that is great for that is coming into the cadenza. And I know Ellie and I talked about that, where you can really, you can open that space up and then go into the written cadenza. The hardest part, and of course, I think Ellie's going to be talking about 2 different versions, or maybe even 3 or 4. Ellie, how many versions are you going to be talking about? The professional version and the orchestral version? Okay.
Yeah, and the lead part. Yeah.
Okay, great. And is everybody here at a professional level, or are there any people who are at a you know, an intermediate or level, or is everybody sort of advanced? Or you're all doing the advanced version?
Yeah.
That's great. The other thing to keep in mind.
We have one student.
Uh-oh, I can't really hear what you're saying, so I guess I'll just stay in, you know, sort of speaking mode. But one of the great things to look at in the sheet music, if you're a teacher.
Hello.
Hello. But see, I only hear you like say 2 things and then you freeze. Shall I just keep talking?
Okay.
Oh, you're going to be quiet? Oh, can be. Oh, okay. Sign language, excellent. So you'll all be working. There are 2 different versions. There are many versions of the piece now. And am I coming across okay, or am I freezing like you guys are?
Yeah, no, you're coming across really well.
Okay, great. All right. So when you learn the piece, and I know Ellie is going to do this with you, she's going to show you the sections. And as you start to notice that there are different versions of the piece, versions with harp ensemble, versions for you know, intermediate and even advanced beginner players, you'll start to see how those sections play. And because the piece is about emotional gesture, the emotional gesture of the Baroque and the emotional gesture of the Passion, which for me expresses those two sides of myself, and getting to go back and forth between them. And then after the cadenza, the two of them come together in the end. And I don't know if you'll have a chance to do this, but you'll notice that the way that we come out of the cadenza in the professional version or the solo version is different than how we come out of it in the orchestral version. And I just want to explain that, because that will help you know how to shape your own version. The cadenza gets really big. It gets as loud as you can get on a harp. In order to then come up to the end, to make the end even bigger, when you're with an orchestra, you can go straight out of that hugeness into a greater hugeness when the orchestra comes in. So the cadenza comes right out of the cadenza and into the orchestra with the orchestral version. When you're playing solo, you can't do that. You can't get bigger than huge. So what you do is you come back to something very, very small, very intimate, even more intimate and small than you've played before, so that you can then come up to that very ending. So you can see that I've been playing and trying to find different ways of writing the gesture that I want. And that is the most important thing for you to get, is the emotional gestures behind the piece. So I'm just thrilled, like this moment where Ellie is taking the baton of this piece, and where she is taking everything she brings to it and her life and her experience to, you know, my experience. This is a moment when the piece is growing and becoming something new and evolving. And as each of you take it and make it your own, it starts to grow even more. And that to me is what is so emotional. And so, you know, ask her what you can do to make it your own, what you can do to really put yourself into it, and to help have the piece help you find out who you are as a player. That's what I want to say. You couldn't be with anyone better than with Ellie. That's how I feel.
Thank you. Well, having you in the room with us has been a massive privilege and probably the highlight. So thank you so much for joining us.
You are so welcome.
Yeah, sorry we don't have.
But it's great. I'm so glad this could happen.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have fun. Play with fire. Bye.
Yay. Bye.
Yay.
Bye.